Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 32 of the Titanforge podcast. My name is Stratnos. Tettles, unable to restrain himself, laughing 2 seconds into the show, is here as well.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tettles.
Hello. And also joining us is Trell.
Hey, guys.
Hey, guys. Howdy. Howdy, y'all.
How do you do?
This week we are going to discuss the Awakened affix. That's our main topic this week, which is good because it's coming soon. It's not actually coming that soon. It's coming in like 10 days, the Awakened affix. So we know the full schedule now. We know that on the 21st in North America and 22nd in Europe is when the first week of Awakened will be. And even that week, you're only going to really want to do one Awakened key because you'll want to spend the rest of your time in Islands, and Mythic Plus doesn't give rewards above level 6 that week. So even if you're farming Mythic Plus, most people are probably going to be spamming plus 6s. Something like spamming plus 6 Mechagons for Mechagon rings, I think is going to be a popular play that week. But I think that Awakened is really going to be something that you'll start to see like farmed on the 28th or the 29th. So we're a little ways away from that, but we still decided to do this episode now. And then in the future weeks, we're going to cover the raid. So next week and probably the week after, we're going to have Nihilotha raid-focused episodes, preparing you guys for both doing it on Heroic yourself and then the Race for World First as the Mythic Week approaches, is our plan for the next couple weeks. After that, we don't know. So, we know the next 2 weeks. Next 2 weeks are going to be raid-focused. In 3 weeks, we're not sure if or what episode we'll have. We may end up missing 1 or 2 shows during the course of progression this cycle. And then we hope to be back immediately after that. We may also be able to get something up for you guys. Maybe not live shows, but maybe some kind of pre-recorded stuff during progression. But it will be a busy time for the first couple weeks, at least, for multiple of us. So that's what is going on here from the Titanforge angle. Trell, I understand you have a new article on Wowhead. Do you want to tell us what's going on with this thing?
Yeah, I was asked by Squishy to write a Mythic Plus ranking of the tanks, or what tank should I play in Season 4, Mythic Plus, rather, for WoW. And we had some interesting Wowhead comments at the bottom, but I think otherwise it was a good article and sums up a lot of the strengths and weaknesses of tanks going into Season 4, as well as some of the minor changes that they're going to receive via direct buffs or indirect buffs, mostly indirect buffs, but
yeah,
taking up a guideline changes tanks a little bit. Buffing Visions of Perfection helps a few tanks. All the new corruptions and essences are going to help tanks with certain weaknesses that they have, like the extra threat from Echoing Void is going to be really good. The Mass Taunt is going to be really good for some. Maybe even the Cheat Death Essence will be great for Blood Decay, stuff like that. Yeah,
I actually, it continues to amaze me how mean the comments are, and how much they seem to think that this is like an article ranking the tanks, when ranking the tanks is like one paragraph near the top here, and then the rest is just like explaining how to play on any of the tanks, all the new stuff. It's really just like mostly just useful info.
Some of the viewers think I am Blizzard and I tuned the tanks. I think I did not do that.
Yeah. I can. This is just actually incredible. The articles, yeah. Or the comments. Anyways, the comments on the internet is always something that whenever you make content, you'll just get a bunch of comments that you did not expect. But it's always still surprising.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's my favorite. In BFA, there's no such thing as skillful tanking. Was my favorite comment. But yeah, if anybody would like to read this article from Tettles, or from Trell rather, yeah. Tettles did not make it, but Trell did.
Great article.
There's a link in Twitch chat, and I'll try and remember to put a link in the article or in the description of this.
I think both of you are having articles come out soon too, as well, right?
Maybe.
Sorry.
Yeah, I
leaking my shit.
I have a DPS counterpart to this one coming out sometime in the next couple days, hopefully. So it should be pretty cool. Mine is.
I have something for raid that took an eternity to write.
Mine is much more tier list than yours as well. The amount of my content that's like talking about the relative rankings of the classes compared to yours. I'm worried about my comment section. We'll see. I tried to, head them off by having like a huge paragraph at the top about playing what you want, but it's not going to work.
I even tried to avoid all the criticism or all the hurt criticism because like people are not wanting to see their tank class being the lowest tier on the list, right? So I ranked Blood DK B tier, where I could even rank it C tier in reality with like how hard they are to survive.
If I were you, this would be like S tier Prot Warrior, and then like an empty A tier even, and then put the other stuff further down, and then Blood down in like D, something like that. So this is definitely one of the nicest. This is probably the nicest possible, the closest possible tier list you can make for the tanks this patch, right?
So what you're telling me is that Trell is a man of the people.
Yeah, Trell's a man of the people.
I am a man of the people.
He's trying to say that all tanks are viable. He's given us the most all tanks are viable tier list that's reasonable to make.
This is a very optimistic approach that I took because I do believe that all the tanks can perform up to that level. Like if a good player plays their tank class, even a Blood DK can almost perform as good as a good Pro Warrior can play. Like very close. In general, I think Blood could be ranked C or D tier just based on the average player.
And what do you think about Rad's ranking Blood behind Demon Hunter with Blur, Hunter Pet, Rogue with Parry, Moonkin Trees, and Earth Element?
In some cases, that's true, probably. Earth Elemental and Trees can take a lot of things that tanks can't. Like, they just don't get magic debuffs. They're really strong cooldowns.
Demon Hunter with Blur has historically been one of the best tanks for many mechanics in the game. Like, if you just want to straight up, unironically fight a Tide's Emissary, my belief is that Demon Hunter tanks are better than many of the tank specs at that. Like, better than Prot Warriors at just tanking a Tide's Emissary.
100%.
Yeah, that's a silly spec for sure. Okay, so cool article, Trell. We'll all, I'm sure, have read it already, but if anybody hasn't, the links will be around places. Let's move on to our main topic. But first, we get to thank our supporters through patreon.com/Titanforge. Ahar of US Proudmore, Paul of US Proudmore, King of Skills, VTech XD, Rock, Zuko, Ja, Uncle Please Invite, Restore Khalifa D. I think Khalifa D got restored, so we may change that one back to Khalifa D is in. Drunk Swede from Legion of Lemmings, Argent Dawn EU, Mrs. Tettles, Actually Tootsie, Heltari.
Mrs. Tettles.
She's here. Ishio, Blue of Emerald Dream, Chromed, Seraphicus, Trekkie, and the Marshare. Thanks so much. I can't believe how much support there actually is for us already on Patreon. It's really incredible. We'll after this progression cycle, we'll look and see if we can set up some nice stuff there and do some special things. But for the next couple of weeks, we'll be pretty busy just making the weekly podcast and doing all our grinding. So it's gonna be a busy time for all of us. Big shout out, by the way, to Ishio. I don't know if you tell and Trell, you guys have seen this as well, right? They've been just doing their like weekly keys, I think, and their keys with their friends in our Discord in the voice channel. You love to see it.
Ishio's very own channel, yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. So one of our Patreon rewards is getting a voice channel named in our Discord, and Ishio's done that, and then they're using it. It's heartwarming to see.
Also, our Discord's really active. I encourage everyone to join it if you haven't already. There's lots of opinions and stuff going around for like what you should do for next patch right now. It's a pretty good place.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad opinions too, like Dratnos's.
Sometimes
there are definitely some heated discussions there. The !Discord and Twitch chat is going to give you my Discord. If that's not the correct link. I don't know if either of you can get a correct link to the Titanforge one and put it in the Twitch chat as well. And then for anybody listening on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube, there will be a link to our Discord as well in the description. There you go, the one that Tettles just posted. So, this week, our topics are the Awakened Affix, but first we also want to cover some changes that are coming to the game, and we want to talk about Horrific Visions of N'Zoth. So Horrific Visions of N'Zoth are this sort of like almost Mage Tower-y scenarios in that they're fairly skill-intensive, single player, but they scale up to 5, so you can do them in groups. And Trell, you've been doing a lot of these on PTR, right?
Yeah, I've done a few. I've gotten my cloaks up to like rank 5 and 6 on several tanks, and honestly, they're pretty fun.
So what's the kind of timeline we're looking for here to upgrade our cloaks? Is it just 1 level per vision for the first few levels?
It is until rank 5. Yeah, you get one. You have to kill the last boss to get the upgrade until like rank 6. So in the first 2 visions, you just want to go straight to Thrall or straight to Illyria if it's the Stormwind one next. But yeah, you get 1 upgrade per vision that you complete. So every vessel that you spend for a vision, you're going to get 1 cloak upgrade. And after that, I think it takes 2 runs to get rank 6 and beyond.
Yeah, so you need to kill the last boss, or else it's a failure and you don't get an upgrade to your cloak, and you don't get a retry. So if you die or lose sanity, it's over. You've lost a cloak upgrade.
Yeah, and this is all week 1 stuff. I think week 1 you'll probably get up to rank 5 and 6. I could be wrong, but I don't think much beyond that is going to be possible, just because the invasions that spawn bi-weekly are going to be the things that give you the currency to go do the vision. So it's kind of time gated in that sense. You have to wait till the invasions come out, and then you go do your vision.
Those are like, it's like Tuesday at reset for NA, then it's like Friday at like 10 p.m. or something.
Yeah, it's exactly halfway between the weekly reset and the next weekly reset. When there's the bi-weekly invasion in Azoth or whatever that changes at that time. So it's a pretty long time, right? You have like 3.5 days to do each of them. So even if you're not playing all that often, you should be able to get on and do just one of those. It's like easier than doing an emissary or 2 emissaries of the week, right? 2 total emissaries each week, something like that.
Right. But getting behind early on is going to actually be really bad for your cape upgrades.
Yeah, so you're going to want to do this on all your alts. So there's kind of a time gate on doing the intro quest for your alts. You need to get it done. If you're trying to keep an alt up to date, you need to get it done by Friday, the intro quest line, and then get it done with its first horrific vision, and do the invasion thing by then at least. I guess you don't even have to do the horrific vision, but you just have to do the invasion thing and start collecting the currency. So, anyways, those horrific visions, you need to kill the last boss or it's a failure. There are side areas, though, that you can do, and the side areas reward you with corrupted mementos. Now, if anybody's interested in watching some video content to this, first of all, there's some from streams, from like Twitch or from Trell's stream. Or if you're interested, also Jeeth has made a video guide on the Method YouTube channel. So that's a really good source too, if you're interested in a YouTube guide.
Wowhead also has a really good guide by saying.
Yeah, Wowhead has a written guide that is fantastic for this too. So those are the main sources to look out for. We'll try and put links to those as well. I don't know. Every time I promise to put links in the description, there's always a 50-50 chance that I'll end up forgetting when I'm actually writing the description later. So I'll try my best though. Now, why are mementos good? Mementos are good because 25,000 of them, once you have researched the full tech tree, will let you add a socket to a piece of gear, which is a nice power level thing. Now, you're not going to actually be able to spend 25,000 mementos doing this until you have fully leveled up your like tech tree. So we're looking at a month or 2 or something before that is feasible. But once you do, you'll be able to add sockets to any Season 4 piece of gear. You won't actually be able to do it to earlier pieces of gear, and there's no interaction with the corruption mechanic. So if you've heard something about like removing corruption and adding a socket, those are 2 different game systems. And are not related at all to each other. You'll be able to add sockets to corrupted or uncorrupted items using corrupted mementos. And you get more corrupted mementos by going down the side paths, right? Doing the full clear instead of just beelining for the boss.
Yeah, I think we also skipped over the fact that the horrific visions can be done with as solo content or in groups. And as it currently stands, I think it's definitely the easiest to do it as solo content. And if you are trying to push as far as possible, if you're just trying to get your weekly done and just take the easiest way out, though, I think it may be easier to just do it with 2 or 3 people.
I think the most efficient way, according to some of the players that have done all the way through the 5 masks, are 1 to 2 players right now. I think it scales pretty hard with 3 or 4 plus players. I did it with 3 people, and it seemed quite a bit harder than it was solo on one of my tanks. That could also mean that I was a tank class and I can self-sustain really easily and all that, but scaling seems a little weird so far.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It might depend on what your options are as well. If you're a holy priest, you're probably better off, grouping up with some people probably to clear this thing faster. But if you're a Havoc Demon Hunter, you probably do not need any friends for this thing.
Dude, imagine trying to do this shit as a healer. What?
Yeah, solo this as a healer would be really hard, I think.
What delusion are
Holy
you
Pally,
in?
Dude, Holy Pally could probably do it.
You just said Holy Priest, though. That's
Holy Priest cannot do it. I don't think that'll be a lot worse.
Smite. Oh yeah, I killed 1 mob. My sanity's gone.
Do you think they could kill Thrall before the instance expires? Before their sanity expires?
All right, yeah,
I think that's right there. Yeah.
We have some new information as well from Squishy, who says that in a PTR hotfix, a lot of group stuff just got nerfed as well. So solo is definitely much easier. And the 200 sanity solo is much easier than sharing it. So
So doing it solo is way better. So recommendation on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed they just changed the talent tree. I was going to talk about the talent you should research for visions, but they just changed it on PTR like that I saw an hour ago. So, maybe we'll put something out about that next week once it's updated.
Yeah, we could do that in our like tip of the week segment or something next week. We can take a look at and give you guys some tips for how to spend your talent uplock and unlocks. Anyways, that's the basics of how the Horrific Visions work. There's 2 different maps to learn for it: the Orgrimmar map and the Stormwind map. And you will have to do both of those, right? It's like whichever. It's not like faction based. It's just weekly swapping.
Right. Like this week on PTR, it was only Orgrimmar Visions, and you could just spam it as long as you have the currency to do it. You can just keep going into Orgrimmar, doing as many side areas as you can, and then killing Thrall at the end while you still have some sanity left. And then it'll rotate the next week to Stormwind. So I guess next week it could be Stormwind on live if they follow like it was on PTR.
Yeah, we could see. I don't know.
We'll see that.
Then what is the deal? What is a mask, Trell? How does that work?
So the masks are something you unlock in the visions once you've full cleared a vision in one run. So full clearing a vision means doing Thrall, which is the last boss of Orgrimmar. But before doing that, you want to do all 4 of the side areas, and each area has its own like vision affix, kind of like Mythic Plus, where it delays you or empowers you in some way. But you complete all 4 side areas, and then you go kill the last boss. And I think doing that unlocks the masks. And there are 5 total masks, and each one of those that you activate before you go in the vision increases the mementos you get out of the vision, and increases the mob's health and damage, and also increases the eye level reward at the end of the vision. So you want to be able to do as many masks as you can eventually, and I think the goal is to do all 5 for each run, so you get like a 470 item at the end. You get like probably multiple thousands of corrupted mementos.
Yeah, so
but you gotta work your way up to that.
This is part of the reason to, like, if you're ever wanting to play an alt, to just start doing Horrific Visions now, is that in a couple months you'll have a full tech tree and be able to just pretty easily do a 5 mask run and get 470 loot on your alts.
Yeah, so imagine gating alts really hard.
Yeah,
Who would have ever thought? Not in my expansion.
Just make sure you start all your alts this week and keep them up to date, and you'll be able to get gear on them when you want to later. But yeah, so basically you can just kill the boss, you can do a couple of side zones, and get some more corrupted mementos. You can do all the side zones and get even more. And then once you've done that, you start unlocking these masks that you then click before you go in. And they each nerf or buff the dungeon, right? So there's 5 different mask effects right now. One reduces your sanity by 50%, which is sanity is the resource you have before you get kicked out. Another one adds void zones to the place that spawn and try and get in your way. Another increases the sanity damage caused by creatures by 200%, so that's a tripling, I think.
I think a lot of that stuff's avoidable. To be fair, that might be the easiest mask if you can avoid all the ground effects and hits that things do. Like you could stun or interrupt them too.
Then there's one that doubles the number of affixes in each of the side areas from 1 to 2. And then there's another one that says, while below 50% sanity, occasionally an enemy of the void will spawn and attack you. So those are the 5 different mask effects, and those should be fun. It'll really, I think it'll do a good job of keeping this difficult content, and there's a good reason to do it, because 470 gear that corrupt, like 470 corrupted gear, could easily be bis with a socket and the right corruption against mythic raid gear. So
yeah, I think this is a lot of fun though. Like, it's a challenge to try to complete as many side areas as you can before you run out of sanity. It's just like Mythic Plus, where you're on a timer and you want to push farther each time. So what I advise is like finding the stop points in each of these areas and then like clearing up to that stop point immediately. Like the first time you enter Orgrimmar, you should just go straight to the first time that you have actual talents, you should go straight to the left side area and just start fighting the elite that's there with all the other trash in the first area that follows you, for example. And then just like making it as efficient as possible, because you get 200 sanity from each elite you kill once you have the talent for it. And once you can pull an elite, like every pull, it's pretty efficient. You almost don't even lose sanity if you can kill an elite every 45 seconds to a minute.
Cool. And that's not dangerous, pulling that many mobs, or is that something that you might need to be worried about depending on your class?
I think you should probably have a tank if you want to pull a ton of stuff with an elite like that.
Or of course, a Havoc Demon Hunter. Yeah, Havoc Demon Hunter. This is going to be like just Torghast preview, where Havoc Demon Hunter is like a 7 times easier than every other class. So it should be pretty cool. all in all, I'm really excited about her horrific visions. To me, this kind of difficult, progression-based, legitimate rewards behind it, and interesting ways of increasing difficulty. It's everything that Islands were not, and that's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Agreed.
I saw Preach actually made a video recently, and he was talking very positively about horrific visions.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
I like how the reward scale too. Like, do Islands really have good rewards after a couple?
Islands just they randomly give you
Yes,
mounts, right? But there's no what you do in an island doesn't matter for mounts. It used to a little bit. It used to matter which enemies you killed to get the mounts that were associated with them. But that was even more stupid because island that wasn't hard. That was just RNG.
But Dratnos, hear me out. Who doesn't love repeatable island expedition content where you're on a tropical adventure getting Azurite power from the world's open wound with your friends, assisting Magni in his
foods?
champion.
Someone in this cave is drawing power from the world's open wounds. Put a stop to it.
Anyway,
should Paladins in Vision go ret or protection? What do you think, Trell? Do you think if you have an equally geared tank spec and a DPS spec, which one do you think you should go?
It's actually a good question. I think you should do the majority of the vision in prot because you can pull bigger, and then you should swap to ret for the last mini boss, and then the Thrall fight or the Illyria fight because you can change specs whenever, and you can change gear inside visions. It's Legion Mythic Plus.
Legion M Plus. Okay.
So some of the time for Moonkin 2, you're going to want to play Guardian for most of the horrific vision, and then play Balance for some of the stuff that you want a large amount of single target damage for.
Yeah. So. Class or spec swapping and gear swapping. Dude, we're gonna get all our trinkets and just swap off your trinkets once you've used them and get the next on-use trinket. It's gonna be big. Alright, so that's Horrific Visions. Let's move on to Awakened and stuff, but first, it's our Tip of the Week segment. My tip of the week for everybody is to get... Okay, let's talk about the Mythic Plus levels that you should be doing the next couple weeks. First of all, the next 2 weeks of weekly chests do not contain Titan Residuum, so to compensate for that, Blizzard is doubling the AP in those 2 chests. So doing the highest level key you can for the most AP possible is the play for the next 2 weeks if you can. But if you are just interested in receiving a 15 key the week where you need to do 115, the week of the 21st, and then after that you do only 6s, all you need to do is do a plus 20 key this week, and then any level key next week, or a plus 19 key next week. Either of those 2 paths will lead you to having a 15 in your box on the week of the 21st. We think. There's a possibility with Blizzard's language that it needs to be 1 level higher than that, but I think that with what their tweet says, or with what their post says, that's the levels you need to do. If you want to be completely safe, you can go 1 level above that, but we think that that's the right numbers based on what they said.
Obviously, it's very ambiguous. They don't say exactly how the decay is going to work. Historically, they said that it's going to be reduced by 3, but what they mean is 3 plus decay. But in reality,
here they said 4, so it's unclear if they mean 4 plus the 1 that normally happens each week, or just 4 total. My reading of it seems that it suggested it was 4 total, but they didn't give any examples, so there's a chance that it'll be 5 total. 4 plus the regular 1 decay, in which case the numbers would be a 21 this week or a 20 next week. But regardless of what you do, if you're capable of timing, whatever the highest level key you're capable of, not even timing, just completing, is totally worthwhile because of that extra AP. You can think of pushing the highest key you can this week is something you can do that gets you AP next week. And there are very few things you can do right now that get you AP for next week, so it's a very valuable thing to spend your time this week doing, and I would recommend it just for the AP.
Also, you can try to hijack one of your friends that do high keys. For example, my Boomkin Gabezilla came back with an 18 key because he used his 23 on his guild. I don't know how I got that on an 18, but something must have happened.
When Mythic Raiders have to deal with Mythic Plus, we start to have depletions, yeah.
Why did they just weekly no-lever the 23 and get him a new key?
Dude, they probably did that 5 times. They probably weekly no-levered the 23, the 22, the 21, the 20, the 19 with different, characters. That's definitely what happened. All the way down.
It's all good. He's a team player. That was probably worth it.
Yeah, it probably took 27 hours total to run those 5 keys. Insane. Yeah, I have some. I did some fairly high keys on alts last week, so I'm looking forward to the guild carrying my alts through some like 18s and stuff. Nice and easy. So looking that should be good times. Trell, what's your tip of the week?
My tip is that in your first visions of next week, well, specifically the very first vision you do with the cloak upgrade quest, you should just go kill Thrall and that's it. Or Illyria if it's Stormwind. You don't have like the talent that gives you 3 sanity orbs. What sanity orbs are is they restore your sanity up to full no matter how low you were, but you have to be out of combat to use them. But for the very first vision, you don't even have that talent. So just go kill the last boss, get your cloak upgrade, and call it good. Because after that, you get the talent and everything. In the second vision, you can go add a side area in or two if you're feeling really spicy. But I would not risk it because if you fail the runs, you miss the cloak upgrade forever and you're going to be one vision behind everyone else.
Yeah, generally, if you have the option, if you're like not sure if you can add an extra area to your horrific vision, just don't try it. Like the drawback from missing, even if you have like a 5% chance of depleting by adding a side area, it's not worth the risk for getting the extra corrupted mementos.
I mean, especially super early on.
Yeah, not until rank 6 of the cloak. I think once you're at that point, you don't actually have to kill the last boss. Like if you were to die in the vision, you'd still get the cloak upgrade if you did the side area. But if you also had died right before the last boss or something, you still want to kill the last boss because it gives you a lot of corrupted mementos and extra rewards. But you don't have to necessarily complete it once you're at rank 6.
All right, Tattles, what is your clip of the week?
Oh yes, the spell reflects a very cool ability, honestly.
All right, so let's watch this thing. This is the Guardian Elemental in Shrine of the Storm.
Yeah.
And we are just all AFKing back here, and it's getting spell reflected every time.
Yeah,
very
it
cool.
takes 3 spell reflects, so it's about a minute and 5 seconds for 36 count, and you actually don't use any offensive or defensive cooldowns on it. You're literally just standing here AFK. Your healer has to like dip in and out of line to dispel your tank occasionally, because he can't spell reflect every single static shock. But beyond that, just like healing the Grievous off the tank and then the occasional dispel, and then you just AFK. It's so nice.
So a couple of important notes here. I didn't know this, but you do need to make sure that the whole group is AFKing back here. If somebody runs forward, even if they're out of line of sight, the Guardian Elemental will get scuffed on its electrifying shocks cast, and you won't be able to reflect it. So be very, very careful about that. I did that, and it cost us like 30 extra seconds on this thing in this run. But yeah, it's a very, very strong strategy. And on that note, we do have a weak aura for anybody who wants it to add Spell Reflect to your details. If you would like to help us participate in getting Spell Reflect nerfed, this is the weak aura to make sure that you're using, because if you use this weak aura, your Protection Warrior will be the top damage player in your group on multiple boss fights and trash pulls in BFA. So get this thing, update or add it to your details, and we'll together we will get Spell Reflect nerfed and have like a damage cap on how much it can reflect.
Together we will get Trellskior banned.
Yeah. Together we can remove Trellskior from Mythic Plus. It's a goal that we all share. Trell more than anybody, I think. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, I can go back to Brewmaster if that's the case, maybe. But in reality, it's a good weak aura. It shows the group how important some of the reflects are. Because some people just don't get like how much damage it really does. Like I was over 100k DPS on the Death Speaker pack in Underop because it almost insta kills the Death Speaker when you reflect the Wicked Frenzy.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, this has just never showed up on details before. You've had to like go into logs and look at like enemy damage taken to actually find out how ridiculous Spell Reflect is in the past. When I've done that, I've been shocked by like the 15,000 DPS that Spell Reflect does on many boss fights.
It does 150k on the Guardian Elemental.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been around for a long time. I just feel bad like making my group AFK for an entire minute. I don't think that's very fun.
It's unclear if is it efficient 36 count for a minute of AFKing. I mean, part of it is it saves you a skip as well.
We compared it earlier.
In terms of like time efficiency, it's about the same as doing like another 4-pack, which would be about the same count value. But the issue is that you're not using your offensive cooldowns at all. The only thing you're using is Spell Reflect. So you have time to recharge all your cooldowns.
Yeah, definitely something that's powerful to do.
Would you rather do the Guardian Elemental or Windspeaker Heldus?
For sure. It's way faster, right?
Yeah, it's gotta be. It's gotta be better than Heldus.
It's the same count.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Also,
if you can,
reduces the chance that all the little initiates will run into the elemental randomly and pull it
Right,
during
that's
the
true.
next
So
turn.
you do reduce some chance of failure from that, so that's nice. But we can all agree it's very stupid. All right. Quick question from chat. Do you guys ever think it's worth it to Irontide Ravager Ludwig to use Painful Motivation on Ludwig von Tortolin? This is something that never really gets done in high keys these days because of just the extra work of like running there and back and there again. It adds like an extra minute of running around the dungeon.
well, yeah, because part of the issue is that you have to clear out the 2 trash packs on the right hand side, and then you have to do the pay RP to spawn Ludwig. I guess your other group members could be running and bringing the Ravager across, but then you're also missing the count that you could be also obtaining from
Right,
the
so
Ravager himself.
the extra, like if Ravager kills Ludwig instead of another mob, it's only plus like a little bit. It's not plus a little. It's not. You don't get the full value of Ludwig's health bar. You only get Ludwig's health bar minus the mob it would have killed's health bar.
I think that mob is actually bugged. Like I go into a Mythic 0 and he does like only 20% of his health and damage from the Painful Motivation.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's because
Painful Motivation.
key level, yeah.
Yeah, Painful Motivation actually double scales with key level is the sick part. It not only deals more damage, so that the Ravager applies a stronger debuff, and then because the mobs are dealing percent health damage to themselves, that also scales it again because the mobs are dealing more damage in Mythic Plus, because the damage is percentage based.
Percentage health. Yeah, it's just supposed to be percentage health though, right?
Yeah, it's extra on top of percentage health because of the Mythic Plus level. So in a low key, it does not one shot them, but in a high key, it's just one tick and they're dead. Yeah.
It's just the Elderly Axa bug, except not murdering you.
Yeah, well, the Elderly Axa is not percent health based, right? That was just like scaling was scuffed. This is just
it was double scaling.
Yeah, this is just percent health and then double scaling on top of that. But percent health is one of the 2 factors that was scaling. It's the same reason why mech jockeys die in Peacekeepers in high keys, is because when a Peacekeeper dies, it's supposed to deal like 40% health damage to the mech jockey inside, but if your keystone level is like 6 or higher, that scales all the way up to being a one shot because it's percent health based. So
homie, can the driller die whenever it gets out of the extractor?
yeah, the driller just doesn't have the same effect, so
nice.
you always have to fight it. It's
And
very
that one
silly.
doesn't give count.
Yeah.
That makes me so sad.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our next little bit. Before we get to our Awakened Guide, we have some new information on Mythic Plus Season 4 loot scaling. The big news here from this is that Keystone levels 10 and 11 are effectively nerfed from where they are now. Relative to Heroic Gear, they'll be dropping 5 item levels lower than Heroic Gear end of dungeon. Whereas right now, 10s drop the same as Heroic. But 12s through 14s give Heroic Gear, and then 15s and higher will give 5 item levels higher than Heroic. So we already knew this about 15s or higher, but what we didn't know is that they were going to effectively nerf 10s and 11s down to being what Mythic level 9s are right now in terms of reward.
I am looking forward to watching non-Mythic Plus players trying to farm 15s really early on, because
Yeah, it's going to be hard.
that shit sucks for people who even know what they're doing. Like the first time that, because Trell and myself have done a lot of PTR keys, and the first time that we were doing them, we thought that they were fucking impossible. But like the more and more we play, they start getting like easier and easier. But at the very beginning, they were fucking awful.
Yeah, this is it's definitely going to be spooky.
I think the hardest part's going to be people when they click on pillars. There's 2 of those mini bosses that you really just need to have a plan as a group before you click the pillar. Some of them you can kind of go in and be okay without any prior knowledge, but the Tank Buster and the Blob, you really need to have a plan for before you go down, because those tentacles hit really hard from the Blob. The Tank Buster's probably going to one-shot your tank on a 15 through most mitigation that would normally help, but doesn't for the Tank Buster for some reason. And then everyone's going to die.
Yeah,
so have a plan for those 2 pillars.
That Tank Buster is going to slay every single tank player the first time they get hit by it. They're just going to get one shot by it. There's no counterplay. They're going to have to just learn that they need to wall it. Except for Monk. Except for Brewmaster, which for some reason gets to stagger it. Good call.
Luckily most raid tanks will be a Brewmaster, so they're going to be okay against that guy. But
So hear me out. 2020, Year of the Bear.
2020 Year of the Bear.
Bear's pretty good, honestly, and they can outrun the Tank Buster permanently. That's a big bonus.
I watched you run around and fucking travel forward, running away from the guy.
It's the play. It's tuned so high, man. On 15, you should just run away.
In other news, the Bwansamdi deplete buff of plus 20% health and damage has come back at Keystone level 9 or lower.
Perfect.
So I
don't hate this. Like,
I certainly don't hate this either, but I do not intend to do any Keystones level 9 or lower that will be depleted next season.
So, like, what Bwansamdi buff is created for is to make people not ditch out of the key if they know it's going to be a deplete.
Yeah.
People who are doing, like, 10s or 15s or whatever probably should be doing it for gear. Like, the gear that you're getting from, like, 10s or 15s is actually substantial enough that you actually want to be completing the dungeon. So that it makes sense why they picked 9. I would prefer it in my keys whenever I have my 25 King's Rest, and I really don't want to play that shit, but I really do want a 24 out of it. But at the end of the day, I understand why they don't want us power feeding to a trash pack to get Bwansamdi buff and running it back through.
I think that one good solution to this would have been making it so that the Bwansamdi buff comes out after the full timer, not including deaths, has elapsed. That way you wouldn't be able to power feed to it. But then
there are many ways that they could fix this. Like,
yeah,
the full timer in real time, plus like you have to have 2 of the bosses dead. Honestly, I feel like that would be a good enough change and a substantial enough change to be able to allow the whole entire, like, everybody to be able to get Bob buff.
Yeah, I think that finding a way to get it back in for, like, legitimate use in high keys, part of it, as well as I think maybe if you do that, rewarding better stuff for in time versus out of time in high keys would maybe make sense as well. I think that part of the reason they want to not put Bwansamdi in high keys is that they want to preserve out of time rewards and not, incentivize people to do Bwansamdi runs.
Titanforge podcast tentpole topic here. I think we should incentivize players to do Mythic Plus because they want to, not because raiders feel like they need to or PvPers feel like they need to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely agree that raiding, PvP, and Mythic Plus should all be things that you can focus entirely on and need very little of the other stuff to be fully competitive in.
The issue is that loot is loot, like, regardless of the source. It's the exact same loot.
Well,
I feel like they fucked up PvP in a way that they could have made the Azerite system actually way better. You know all the PvP-specific Azerite pieces that do bonus damage whenever you're fighting a different player? Like, whenever you're fighting an enemy player?
Yeah.
Imagine if they had this for raid. Like, if you're fighting a boss mob.
Yeah,
You get bonus damage. And, like, that would be the only outer ring on those pieces. Like, you don't even have a choice of, like, your class-specific one. That's the only outer ring choice. And then you have, like, an inner ring choice.
Yeah, I think something like that would be a really good solution. That, those pieces would be BIS for raid and it would be good, but you wouldn't need them for Mythic Plus. I think, like, Condensed Life Force is a great example of a BIS essence that comes from raid that you need to get to be competitive in raid. But if you only do Mythic Plus and you never get Condensed Life Force, you're totally fine without it, right? And
but you need it for PvP.
Yeah, you do. So it is good in PvP, but you don't. Not all specs need it, right? In PvP, only
the minor is insanely good in PvP.
But even that's, like, I guess it is something you do need to farm. I don't know about PvP. You certainly know more than me, so that's a drawback. But I do like that. For the most part, most of the effective CLF comes in raid, and at least relative to M+, you don't need it in M+.
I mean, same with Iris, right? Iris is.
Yeah, Iris you only play in Mythic Plus. Yeah, like Blood of the Enemy, a bad example of this though, because you farm BGs and you only use it in M+. You never use it in PvP.
Delete BGs.
Yeah. So
I just wish that each branch of content had its own way of gearing at the max level. Like, eventually you'd only use the gear from that content, but right now you have to do, like, all 3 branches of content to do anything at the highest level, honestly. So
I feel bad. Like, I'm going to get 2100 heroic week. I do not have any interest in farming out 152 games to get 2100, but I know that if I don't, that I would be giving up the possibility of getting some nice gear week 1. So I feel obligated to do it. And that is honestly one of the worst feelings.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to try. Like, I know it'll be good gear. I know it would be helpful, but, like, I'd have to push 2100 on a new spec because I'm, like, tanking, so I'd have to do it on, like, Windwalker.
Mistweaver.
Or Mistweaver, yeah. Either way, that would be difficult.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So that's I guess it's fine for I think it's fine for us to have these dilemmas. Like I don't think that pushing 2100 in heroic week or whatever for super high end players is actually a problem. I just more worry about like people who want to do mostly Mythic Plus in 3 months time and don't want to raid being way behind. I think that's much more of a problem than like world first or world top 100 people being incentivized to do PvP and Mythic Plus and raid. I think that's totally fine.
I see it more of an issue for PvP than I even do for like Mythic Plusers or raiders, because PvPers fucking farming Mythic Plus for Mythic Plus and raid for 2 different trinkets is just so bad. Like they all hate that shit, and it makes them resent PvEers, and it's the weirdest dichotomy because it makes them resent other players because they don't want to do their content.
Yeah.
That's also a very strange phenomenon, I will admit.
I mean, I got hard flamed while doing 2s on my Havoc DH just to get Conflict and Strife because it was PvE geared, and I was just like easily beating some low geared PvP players.
Yeah.
With good skill but bad gear, and they were so mad. I was like, dude, I'm just doing this for my essence. I'm sorry.
You queue into 2s or whatever, and you have 350,000 health, and you play up against 2 people that have 150,000 health. No items. Yeah, it's silly.
You just use them as a Havoc Demon Hunter, and they die eventually.
Yeah. So speaking of this, on this note, we have learned that the weekly boxes from both Mythic Plus and PvP will always contain a corrupted item. So farming those corrupted pieces is going to be big, and that's part of the reason that the PvP boxes may be even more valuable this season than in previous seasons. Is because they're always corrupted items. And there are some pretty strong like trinkets, a heavy amount of like rings and bracers and stuff that are in that loot table and could be corrupted and could be great sources of your corruption. So it's gonna be a very powerful thing to do if you can get up to 2100 or 2400 in PvP for those best level boxes. That's gonna be big for the rings and the bracers that can be corrupted, or the powerful PvP trinkets which cannot be corrupted because they're trinkets. Yeah. There are some new.
See that trinket, PvP trinket that's a Shadow Meld one?
Yeah, there's a meld trinket, which, come on, man. Why is there a meld trinket from PvP? Like, am I gonna need to get this thing for Mythic Plus? I don't know.
I think I don't hate that. Now, like, that I really think about it, I don't. That's one of the least egregious things I think I've seen. The fact that it's from PvP kind of blows, but the fact that it's
putting meld on a trinket.
I wish it came from a Mythic Plus I wish it came from Mythic Plus because that would be a little bit more reasonable. But the fact that they put it on a trinket, I sit there and I look at that, I'm like, there are worse things in this game.
Yeah, no, I mean, putting Shadow Meld on a trinket is a good nerf. It's a good fix to Shadow Meld, right? Like, if everybody can meld on a trinket. I mean, the problem is that 2 melds is better than 1, right? So like, just getting it, but like the first meld is way more valuable than the second, dude. Right? Yeah,
I think everyone in the party can.
2 melds is so hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like you can use it in combat or like I guess you have to be able to use it in combat if it's a PvP trinket. But everyone in the party can click the portal that it creates, and I think you stay in that realm for 6 seconds or something.
Okay, so Jamal needs to PvP, and the rest of us can continue to PvP.
Yeah, like one person takes the trinket into a dungeon, and then everyone clicks the portal to shadow meld something.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
I wonder if this opens up like paladins and shaman in MDI as well. Like those classes in MDI have historically been unable to be played because they can't play night elf, but we might be able to play like blood elves, paladins, shaman, all these sorts of things. Volpera, get some Volpera in next MDI.
Nope. Yeah. No, you're fucking canceled. All right, moving on.
What's wrong with Volpera? Okay. No troll, I think that Volpera strats are going to be real in MDI as well, or not in MDI, but in live keys, because you'll be able to use them to set your camp like right outside Shrine of the Storm, and you can use it to like re-talent going into the last couple bosses.
True.
Yeah.
What's the difference between just dropping out of group?
Yeah, well, it's the same effect as that, I guess. Yeah.
All right.
This way you're still healable easily and stuff. It's it's better that way. All right.
How do I time out the broadcast? Or Twitch chat's right on this one.
Let's move on to our main topic now, which is Awakened. Only 45 minutes into the show before we got to our main topic. That's a new record for us, I think. Awakened.
Sorry, we went on a tangent.
We did go on a little bit of a tangent. Let's talk about the Awakened affix. So, Trell, what is Awakened?
Awakened is the removal beguiling. Ah, yes. I'm just kidding. So it adds 4 mini bosses to each dungeon, and they're all always the same 4 mini bosses, but their locations are on a fixed pillar in each dungeon. The pillars will never move week by week, but I think 2 out of the 4 pillars rotate every 2 weeks, which mini bosses they are. I think that's the current knowledge.
So to our knowledge, there's the 4 pillar spawns and 2 different patterns of which pillars are where, and you get, it's like week 1, week 1, week 2, week 2, week 1, week 1, going like that, which is pretty cool. I think this is a great way to have a little bit of variety, but also a lot of consistency.
Yeah, like not too much of it.
Like you're not every week you have to go in and relearn, and even when they change patterns, there's only 2 total patterns, and you don't have to like super hard relearn it. It's just you have to relearn which emissaries or which awakened mobs are where. So
how much of like the mob inside the obelisk do you think will actually affect the keys, like the key level that's able to be done? Because of course it's going to have some variance. People are going to be trying to play the lieutenant mobs with the end boss, which we haven't discussed very much. Basically, if you pull the end boss while there's some of the pylons, like the mini boss hasn't been killed yet, then the mini boss will spawn at the end boss. And like the end bosses are static. Like Harlan is always the end boss of Freehold kind of example. And some of them are really easy to play with the end boss. It kind of just depends on what you're doing. Like for example, the one that just requires multiple kicks. If you're playing something like Unbound Abomination that doesn't require a bunch of kicks, you can just play that with the end boss. There's no downside to that. There are some that are not really doable. We're going to talk about like that in a little bit. The Fear Guy and the Tank Buster just...
Dude, maybe you could do the Fear Guy with like, if you have double Shaman for double Tremor, you just fight the fear one with the last boss.
That guy's fear does like 50% of your health whenever it explodes. That shit is not okay.
Okay, that's too much.
Yeah, it's like that, or the caster guy that'll maybe get 1 cast off every 20 seconds or so on one player that you can just mitigate or have a plan for. I think it's always going to be the caster spider boss or the blob ground effect boss. The blob just requires the last boss to have room to kite around because the puddles do a lot of damage. You can't just sit.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what this looks like in a dungeon. So here we have some maps from MDT that show where the obelisks are. So this is a Taltazar, for instance. And then each of these is showing which actual, like what spire they are and what enemy is there. So there are 4 different spires, and they start with a different letter from B through E. So it's like Brutal Spire, Cursed Spire, Entropic Spire. I forget what the D is. And they each also come with an enemy that we've shortened to Spider, Fear, Tank, and Blob. We'll explain what these 4 mini bosses do, but this is what it looks like when you look at a dungeon. You see these 4 obelisks, and realistically, you're going to have to path to at least 3 of them, and then you can fight either the Spider or the Blob with the last boss, maybe, but probably not either of the others.
Did you say that's from MDT? That's not from MDT.
Or sorry, from the map. Yeah, sorry, just from the mini map. MDT will have awakened obelisks though, starting on the 21st. And you'll be. It's actually, the functionality is really good that Nagi's putting in. You'll be able to like click and move a portal to where you want to have the portal come out. So very, very cool effects from that. But yeah, you're right. It's not from MDT. It's from in-game map.
But you notice there that the sea spider obelisk is like in the middle of a double honor guard pack, which you really don't want to pull. So you have to have a way of dealing with that one, right? I think the easiest way is to do that one with the last boss, or you can have someone like move the mobs away, get out of combat, and then join you in the lower realm. You have to have some way of moving the pack over. So we discovered that you could use a rogue to pull them away and then vanish. You could have someone knock them with Ring of Peace, and then the druid masters them off the path of the obelisk. You could just use Shadow Meld if you're Alliance, as usual, for the seasonal affix.
Yeah, every seasonal affix has been broken by Shadow Meld.
Here comes the trinket.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is that each of these enemies, when you fight them at their obelisk, casts armies in Azoth and brings along an army, and some of those are really toxic. Some of those armies in Azoth are really rough to fight, but you can pull them away with a rogue, and then they can like vanish, and they'll just stay far away and not run back because they're like weird tentacles. So it's going to be a very powerful effect to do that. If you can, particularly against the tentacles. And we'll get more to that in a bit. But one of the big piece of news is that if you fight these enemies with the end boss, they don't cast armies in Azoth. So you do not have to deal with those 5 little mini ads that they each spawn when you pull them at their obelisk.
The mini ads are sometimes the hardest part of the of the encounter or whatever.
So let's talk a little bit about these pylon placements, because Ataldazar here, we do have this, like, the one that is mapped to the spider boss on this showing. Again, shout out to Squishy for doing this work here of getting these maps. The one near the spider, or the one that has the spider boss here, is in like a weird place. The other three are in pretty reasonable places. And if you look at the rest of the maps, yeah, the Ataldazar in particular has some weird spots, but most of the rest of the dungeons, these obelisks are in pretty nice places. Like King's Rest, there's ones that let you skip bridges, which are common things to skip. Underrot, they're just like there's one in a little bit of an out of the way place, but the others are all in fairly easy to access places. And if you look, like, you probably choose between fighting, if you want to fight the blob or the spider with the end boss, those are the two ones that are kind of easily skippable. So you can do one and skip the other.
That D obelisk in Underrot is so trolled. Nobody wants to ever go over there. That's like the worst efficiency of trash count ever. There's just a bunch of worms that can't be pulled together.
They should resummon back the skeleton pack on that side.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the old skeleton pack that they removed from the game that we used to double pull with the other skeleton pack for huge
Why did they
count.
remove that one?
I think they just wanted to nerf us. And
I don't know why. That was fun.
Yeah,
like, we can't have people pulling 10 mobs. That's
it was also like a patrolling pack that made the death skip not work, because that pack would just be there most of the time, and you couldn't run back through the skip that opens up. You know the little skip after you kill Sporecaller Zantia that opens up through the middle of the map?
Yeah.
So that might have been it too.
See,
yeah, the shortcut.
Blizzard has made a mistake here. Instead of making a skip, they should have just put a checkpoint at Sporecaller.
100%.
Yep, checkpoints are definitely the way, rather than stupid, weird shortcuts that still cost you too much time. Here's the Temple of Citralis obelisks, one right at the start of the dungeon, so you can just use it to skip the packs. They're next to all the spots where people normally shroud, basically, or most of the spots where people normally shroud. It's really nice to see this, actually.
They took time
really
and put
good.
these in correct places, which
is beautiful. It's basically all the spots where they put awful Void Touched emissaries that, you know, messed up your runs. They've now placed great obelisks that will make your runs better. So
you're being too real. Hold on.
You love to see this. There's ones that'll skip all the different zones in Motherlode. Siege of Browse, there's one that can skip you through the, Biltrat quarter. Freehold, they're kind of just a little bit all over the place. But definitely none of them are like far out of your path, and some of them could be used to facilitate some skips.
That spider one that's marked on that map is actually in that top Ravager pack, so that one's actually in a pretty bad spot.
Well, you can just fight that. Like, that's not an awful pack to pull though and get count from.
What does
right?
it say? What does it say beneath that picture? Which ones are swapping in that dungeon? Is it always the spider there? Because you can always play the spider with Harlan.
It says B and D. B and D.
Oh, so the spider's
that
C
means
there. So C's. So the spider's always stagnant, so you always play that with the Harlan then. That's not bad.
You just pull it into Harlan and do the Tank Buster and the Blob. Why is it E not A? Because it's the first letter of the Spire, THD. Yeah, so it's the Entropic Spire of N'Zoth, the Brutal Spire of N'Zoth, the Cursed Spire of N'Zoth, and for some reason they made Entropic instead of something that starts with A. Maybe they just couldn't think of a word that starts with A.
I did not realize that.
Defiled Spire.
It was bothering me.
Defiled Spire. Anthropic. That would be funny. They could have, I guess they could have come up with an A word, yeah.
Anyways.
Toldagor obelisks here. Also fairly good. There's one.
The issue with those that you have to have like somebody in the normal realm opening cages.
Yes. So the rogue has to like do the cages while the rest of the group does the mini boss, but that's totally reasonable, right?
Notice how many times we said Rogue. Rogue is still going to be really good this season, although I think you probably only want one instead of two, maybe. Two is probably still good, but Rogue is meta.
Yeah, one Rogue is fantastic in all groups still. Second Rogue is still totally fine, but you don't... I think the big thing that obelisks do is that the penalty for being a zero Rogue group is much lower now, right? Like, if you are a group without a Rogue, you are trolling by a lot less than you used to be doing. You're probably like 90% effectiveness instead of 70% effectiveness without a rogue.
Also, notice how scuffed this map is.
Yeah, Toldagor.
Vertical dungeons, by the way.
It is beautiful. It is a beautiful effort by Squishy to indicate where the spires are. But yeah.
So, I think in general, rogue is just going to be also worse damage-wise next tier than they have been historically.
I think Outlaw and Mythic Plus is going to continue to be a great Mythic Plus damage spec. Like I'm really not worried about that. But I think that in Raid it'll probably not be like one of the premier damage melees, and in Mythic Plus, yeah, it might not be the best. It might like you might want to play like Unholy Death Knights and do some nonsense that way, but I don't think that Outlaw is going to have a damage problem, or Assassination even in Mythic Plus. I think that those specs just do such good AoE and things, and I think it'll be fine. It might be a little bit lower relative to now, but there's a lot of room for Outlaw to be doing less damage and still be great, right?
True. It's the same as fucking Moonkin. Like, dude, if you have a bunch of utility, then you can forego having an insane amount of damage. It's always how it is. If you can make the key easier to do, then the damage is just relative, right? Like if something's doing 20% more damage, you're just going to bring that there.
A question from chat here. Do mini bosses inside obelisks give count? Yes, they do give count, whether you kill them in their obelisk or with the last boss, but no, it's not very much. It's not good. It's not good count relative to how much health they have. It doesn't really matter though, because you have to fight them. So
did we ever confirm the teaming shit? I don't remember.
I don't know if we confirmed it, but it seems like they give 6 count on teaming. They give 4 count normally, and maybe 6 on teaming.
Yeah, which is like 2% in most dungeons, or 1% or something in many, or I guess more 2 or 3% in most dungeons.
Also worth noting, if you pull it with the last boss and kill the awakened mini boss, and then wipe or reset the boss, you permanently get the count. But then you can fight the mob again when you re-pull the boss.
Okay, so is this the strat? You just skip the whole dungeon, you pull the last boss and kill the awakened mini boss, and then just reset it. You keep pulling the last boss and keep farming the awakened mini boss with it. I don't think that's the strat, no. I don't
Getting
think that's
4
the plan.
count every 2 minutes sounds pretty bad.
Did you hear that it's supposedly bugged right now with Shadow Meld, where bosses that don't give global combat, like you can just pull them and then meld off
the awakens?
You meld off the awakened, and then the awakened mob just stands there, and then you fight the boss.
Wow.
Actually, Morning and I tried that after we heard it the other day, and I don't think that's true.
Okay.
Somebody was saying that was.
I think it may have been possible a while back or something.
Okay.
We'll see.
Another question is whether they scale with Fortified or Tyrannical. These don't scale with either, right?
They don't scale with either, which is
good. That's really good. Because Infested scaled with Fortified, and that was awful. And they made it so that Beguiling and Reaping did not, and that was a good change.
They figured that shit out quick, that was not okay.
Yeah.
Blizzard did have the foresight to make sure the mini bosses weren't affected by stuff like bolstering either. The little ads that come with them mid-dungeon are affected by bolstering, so if you kill one tentacle and the other 3 are full health,
that almost has to change, right? Because bursting is like so bad on some of them.
Well, they each only have 4 to 5 ads. I don't think it's too bad.
Yeah, if you're a guy, you just die.
Yeah, you're gonna. It's gonna be spooky. It's gonna be spooky. I don't know. I feel like they'll only fix that if people in low to medium keys are wiping to it. If it's a big problem in high keys, then it's not going to be something that they really worry about. I don't think they don't really make changes on that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right, here's Waycrest Manor's obelisks. This one's an interesting set. The thing worth noting is that it's on the left side in the basement, and then there's one in the kitchen area, in the normal area, the right side there. So, also another thing worth noting in Waycrest is you need to open the doors in the real realm, or else you're just going to run into a door that you can't open in the Zoth's realm.
Yeah, the door's automatically closed, right?
That blob is actually so trash, because you would think that in the kitchen it's good placement, but that door doesn't stay open, and it's impossible for you to open the door, go click the pylon, and then go down into the downstairs area with the blob. I feel like that door almost has to get removed at some point, because it's like literally impossible to do anything.
I feel like
once you kill the 3rd boss, like,
I feel like people are going to like. I feel like this is going to get changed in the first couple weeks of the patch. Like people are going to run into this and complain about it a lot. But it's so ridiculous.
You send a rogue, but the rogue can't get himself back into can't get himself through the door with you.
Yeah, so it's got to be a monk with transcendence, right? Yeah.
I don't even know if a monk with transcendence is quick enough. The door is only open for
the monk sets the transcendence and then goes and touches the spire. Oh, does the transcendence go away when you swap realms?
I think you can't use transcendence out of the realm.
Oh, God.
I needed to test that and I forgot, but I'm pretty sure you can't do that.
Okay,
So
yes.
there's literally no way to use that.
Well, you just leave your
obelisk to go
most
downstairs.
you leave your most useless DPS in the real realm, just opening the door for you guys, and everybody else is in disaster realm and gets through.
And then your most useless DPS that also has a stealth then runs towards like the Lord and Lady Waycrest room.
Yeah,
Okay,
and just meets you up there. Yeah, and then they shift out of cat form and back into moonkin form. Yeah.
So yeah, anybody else
Or-
want a Moonkin to go do that for them?
Yeah.
Or you could
See.
just kill the mini boss with 3 DPS and then use Shroud. Honestly,
I'm helping.
Oh yeah. You just kill the mini boss. Don't use the portal at all in Shroud. That does sound better.
Right.
That does sound better.
it's definitely better.
Macagon, Operation Macagon. Good placements in upper. Notably, you'll be able to use a obelisk to skip either or both the stealth section and the trash before King Macagon himself, if you want to. So it looks like the best way to get count in this place is going to be to kill all the stuff except for the packs right before King Macagon, and you skip as much of that as possible, maybe, because that is the most tragic trash in the dungeon.
You could basically pick to skip the very last pack plus the 2 robots before it, or the blobs. I think on bursting and bolstering, you probably want to skip the blobs because there's like 15 of them. But on everything else, skip the last pack that does a lot of damage and requires you to stand in the shields, or else you're probably going to die.
Yeah, and then lower Mechagon, they're just kind of all over the place. Lower Mechagon, I think, is one of the weirder obelisk ones because there's 2 right by the last boss, and in those areas right next to the last boss. But I guess you could just go to Gunker early. Even if you go to Gunker late, it's not too bad, I guess.
The issue is that you don't really need obelisks to get around the dungeon. Like there's no point in using them to get around the dungeons. It's very similar to Freehold in that regard, is that you just like sure, they're nice to set up tunnels to be able to not pull Cat Island and wipe yourself, but realistically you don't.
It's a little interesting, right? Because in linear dungeons, obelisks really increase your options, but in these non-linear dungeons, they reduce your options because you have to actually path to each of them, to each of the obelisks. So it's kind of a weird effect.
The obelisks in upper are really good though.
Yes, yeah, the upper ones, because it's a linear dungeon, right? The obelisks there give you options of which one you actually want to use.
We're gonna keep calling it upper and lower, by the way.
Yeah, we'll be doing that.
Call it Junkyard and Workshop. I will fight them. Don't worry, chat.
Yeah, okay. In Operation Macagon : Junkyard, that's where they're at their best. Okay, let's talk a little bit about fighting each of these mini bosses in particular, because they all have a different set of abilities, and many of them can be pretty lethal. So let's start off with the Fear one. So this comes from the Entropic Spire. So the E pillar is the Fear person, Samrek, Beckoner of Chaos. What's the strategy with this mob, Trell?
Sam's gonna wreck your tank. The Fear mechanic goes on 3 players at a time, and they can pick any player in the party. The tank should definitely have priority of Dispel if it picks them, because it will turn their back to the mini boss and all the ads, and they'll instantly die on higher keys. Probably on 15s as well, honestly. Like, you should not let your tank get hit from the back because of a Fear. Warriors can immune this Fear if you're a protection warrior, another gain for them. I'm not sure what other classes can. You probably can do it with Divine Shield, but I don't know if you'd want to use it there.
Yeah, so there you see Tettles got feared in this clip. Because the Fear also puts a little, it's like a little circle debuff around you, and when it expires, it'll fear the person and anybody else in their circle. It puts out 3 of these, and they're at like staggered intervals. You can see now Tettles is reverse flaming and goes back in and intentionally.
He runs onto me.
The shit out of me. Yeah. He feared me, and then I had to fear him back.
Yeah. So these explode at staggered intervals. It is possible to dispel 2 of these 3 if you very quickly dispel the lowest duration one right at the start. Then you'll be able to get your dispel back right before the last one goes away.
Tettles, what's going on in that
Can you
clip?
explain what the heck just happened here? Yeah, you just fell down the side. Is this how you're supposed to handle Samrek, Beckoner of Chaos?
No, getting feared off the ledge because your bear tank is griefing you is not the way to do it. No.
All right, yeah, I think that this is a really complicated MDI strat that you'll really only see executed by top groups, like getting feared off the edge and dying.
Or you can mass dispel it, or you can probably imp dispel it.
Imp dispel, again, yeah, Tremor Totem as well, you can use to, but the problem is that when the Fear explodes, it also does a bunch of damage, so the ways to dispel the debuff before it turns into the Fear are better, right? Because then you won't take the damage.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so Mass Dispel really strong actually for this, right?
Immunity is a massive spell, and the circle around you does fear other players. I don't know if we mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's what's going on in that clip. We're fearing each other because we're being dumb, but don't do that.
What do you think about his little ads having the anti-kite mechanic?
Yes, so the armies in N'Zoth here, the little ads there, do a bleed on the tank, or if the tank is kiting, they'll bleed whoever they run next to, right?
Right, yeah, the bleed is a pretty short duration, so I think they want you to kite, but they also will target the nearest player when your tank's not in range, and that bleed does a lot of damage, so your tank's gonna have to kite like 3 seconds into the pull and then come back in, but one of your melee is probably gonna get owned in the meantime.
Shout out my boy Trees.
Yeah, trees or parry, you know, those are the main options, I think. So this is the Entropic Spire, though, and the Entropic Spire is something we think will always be fought and not with the last boss, so wherever the Entropic Spire is, you're usually going to want to use it and not try and save it for the last boss.
Yeah, this one is not playable with any end boss. Like, the amount of damage that the circles do is pretty significant. Plus, being fear pathing is bad, and you lose a lot of damage because most of the time, if you're playing the mini boss with the last boss, you actually just want to bloodlust the mini boss and burn it down. This is not one of those guys that you're going to get like high value out of bloodlusting him and trying to burn him down.
Yeah, because you're going to keep getting feared and losing uptime. Yeah. The next enemy that we think is also not really playable with the end boss is Urgroth, Breaker of Heroes. So this is the tank buster, and it comes from the Brutal Spire, so the B Spire. It has a tank buster that murders tanks that are not... If you are not a Brewmaster or a bear, you need a big defensive to live this thing. Even a bear, you know...
Even a bear, yeah. You need something.
So the little malignant growths you see around there are this thing's armies in N'Zoth. They're basically like the malignant growths on Gahoon. They just make like a gross ground of area, and you just kill them off, and they go away. But yeah, the main thing on this thing is just that Spirit Breaker. There you can see it casting. Wow, Trell Bear had Barkskin and SI up for that, so he was fine. But it is a spooky thing otherwise, and it can one shot many other tanks. If you don't have a defensive up for this thing, it's just going to actually one shot you.
Oh,
I don't think you should even take it at all without any kind of double defensive on a 15. I think not only does the Spirit Breaker do a huge portion of your health because it's tuned at like 700k damage or something at that level. It then leaves an 8-second debuff that makes you take double damage from the mob, and that guy's melee is also hit very hard, so you're just going to die shortly after if you don't have a seat.
Yeah, now notably, this thing is tankable by trees. Trees will taunt it and take the tank buster, so that's a very strong effect there. Demon Hunters can like Netherwalk taunt, Paladins can bubble taunt. These are all useful ways to handle the Spirit Breaker. The other thing this mob does is an AoE circle that everybody has to run out of. Or else they'll die, so don't die
that AoE circle, if you guys remember the Reaping mob that also had the circle, equally as bad. It is not good on mismatched terrain at all.
Yeah,
it's hard to see,
ground effect will get... Yeah, it's impossible to see if it's on mismatched terrain at all.
Yeah. All in all, though, it's this thing is mostly on your tank, just living that stupid tank buster. Is the main thing to do.
Somebody wants to know, is Spirit Breaker magic damage? No.
It's physical damage, but it's not blockable. So like Warrior cannot mitigate it at all except for their base armor, and then using cooldowns except for shield block. Like their main mitigation does nothing right now, which I think is a mistake. They should fix. I also think
it's also not
nerfed.
dodgeable or parryable.
Right.
But it is. So Iron Fur is effective against it, but and Dagger is effective against it, and basically nothing else is besides Shield Wall and stuff. Oh, Shield of Righteous, you need to have that up.
Really good verse to that.
But like Blood DK and Prot Warrior are just screwed. Like they have very little against physical damage except their main wall abilities, and if you don't have wall, you're just going to get one shot. I don't think that's okay for tank balance. Like Brewmaster can literally sit there and just eat it on a 17.
Demon Spikes are also bad versus it, right?
Demon Spikes increase armor and parry, and meta increases armor as well. So both Demon Hunter effects do increase armor, but so I think it'll be fine actually for Vengeance. Vengeance also can live it. Like they can kite also easily afterwards, right?
Yeah,
they have two
if you have some
leaps.
kind of quick movement spell, you can just outrange it easily. Like if as a monk you could torpedo away, as a Vengeance Demon Hunter you could Infernal Leap away.
So
just in time to
so Death Knights are closed on this mob is what we're saying, because they can't.
Yeah, I think it's just very hard for a Prot Warrior and a Blood Death Knight to do these mobs.
Okay, so quick question, Trell. Have you reconsidered where you ranked Blood Death Knight in your Mythic Plus tanking tier list?
No, I think this mob makes it worse. Even though it makes Prot Warrior versus well, I think Prot Warrior is still going to be the best tank because
I was more referring the Blood Death Knight
downwards,
drops
yeah, as high as the B tier. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe moving Blood Death Knight a little lower, yeah.
All right, the next enemy is the Spider. This comes from the Cursed Spire. So the Sea Spire is the Spider. And this is one of the ones that we think can be pulled with the end boss. It does have some casts that need to be interrupted, right? One puts a curse on people and one puts a disease on people, and they both have like nasty effects and a dot. Luckily, the disease one is you can get out of it if you have things that drop slows and snares. So stuff like Vengeful Retreat, Vanish, Shapeshift, Tiger's Lust, Freedom, clear that effect as well. So if you're low on kicks, you can use those as a substitute. Or of course, you can play a group that has curse or disease dispels and handle the cast that way. But there is an upfront damage component to these casts in addition to the curse and the disease. So mostly you are going to want to have kicks on this thing. 3 melee kicks is the number you need, or two melee and 2 ranged kicks to stop any cast going through. And you'll kick a different thing each time, right? You'll kick. It should cast like curse, disease. So if you are one of the kicks there, you'll kick curse, and then the 3 kicks later will be a disease and then a curse, back and forth. So you don't always kick the same thing, right? Which will be a little hard to coordinate.
Right. I think all the casts that it does do a significant portion of someone's health if it goes through, and then you can also dispel it if it's a curse or a disease dispel if you have that in your group. So you want to stop as many as you can, but luckily, even when one goes out every once in a while, it is mitigatable, and I think it's okay to do with most last bosses.
Yeah, so this is one, as long as the last boss is not interrupt heavy, you can do this with the last boss, right?
Well, also, I wouldn't pull this with something like Overseer Korgus either.
Yeah, and Korgus is just a very hard last boss, right? You just don't want to really pull any Awakened things onto it, probably, right?
Yeah, I think it'll probably end up being this guy with Korgus, but we'll see. I mean, the meta is going to shape up, and this is only the tip of the iceberg.
Well, so that would require you to have... I would almost say you need 4 melee kicks for that. If you're actually going to play this guy with Korgus, I don't think you bring a ranged for that dungeon at all then.
Yeah, notably as well, this thing's armies in Azoth are pretty forgettable. They just explode if you don't kill them. But if you just kill them fast, they don't really do anything. So
their explosion is like Tick Explosion from Underrot. It actually does some incidental damage. It's not a lot though. It's not. Yeah. It is kind of forgettable, like you said.
Yeah. And then outside of that, a fairly easy to deal with enemy that we do think you can fight with the last boss, as long as you're going to be able to interrupt it.
Yeah,
I think you could let all the casts go on the tank as well. Like for the Korgus example, the tank does not take very much damage that fight if they play it right. And if you have all the casts from the mini boss going on you, you're fine.
But you don't even need any kicks on that fight, right? You can just use them all on this thing still. You shouldn't need to let any casts go through, I don't think. Although, can your tank reflect the cast back on him?
Probably, actually.
Yeah, so you probably want to allow whatever ones go on your prop warrior to be reflected. That'll help. Okay, the final awakened mini boss is the Blob, the Blood of Corruption. This comes from the Defiled Spire, so the D Spire. This one is another one we think can be fought with the end boss. So one big reason you'll want to fight this one with the end boss is that this thing's armies in Azoth are the most annoying out of any of them. It's 5 Mind-Rend tentacles, or Mindflay tentacles, that zap people for a bunch of damage. So one of the big reasons to fight this thing with the last boss is that you don't have to fight the tentacles by doing that. You can also avoid fighting the tentacles with some advanced strategies, but if you're going to fight them the old-fashioned way, they're very scary, and you need to fire off some interrupts on them. Outside of that, the blood itself doesn't really do much, right? It just kind of it puts void zones beneath itself and then random party members every couple seconds. So you just kind of need to keep moving. Members.
In addition to that, the tentacles, like the eyeball tentacles, will teleport if you get too far away from them. This can be used to your advantage if you actually just want to move very quickly out of line of sight of them. Like if your whole entire group moves out of line of sight, you can get the tentacles kind of stacked up really compactly and then use AoE stuns or Dragon's Breaths or Solar Beams or like that stuff like that to be able to disrupt their cast.
Yeah, so you see pretty bad. They spawn there, all of them in a different spot. And yeah, if you move far enough away and they group up, then you'd be able to actually AoE crowd control them. That definitely seems like a good strategy to make this thing better here. I think we're going to see them. Yeah, you see they just teleported there, and they're now a little bit closer together. And those now are all in range of a Dragon's Breath. So much better.
Yeah. It also...
like I was saying earlier, I think this is one of those mini bosses where you have to have a plan before you click the pillar. So like all the tentacles spawn so far apart, you're gonna want to move far away, right? So as a tank, I would tell your group, hey, everyone move to this marker that I just placed right on pole, just to outrange all the tentacles and be safe as a group.
Yeah. And then beyond that, you can see there's just a bunch of void zones going on the ground, and that's not too big of a deal. Those are definitely, you shouldn't run out of space when doing this because there's not really much worry about pulling other stuff. The main problem this might have is it might make it so that if you have a very precise place that you want to place the portal of this thing, you might have to be careful with when you actually move it to where you want that exit portal to be.
This eyeball channel is also spell reflectable, so if your prot warrior tank will go in 3 or 4 or 5 seconds before the rest of the group, they can get their spell reflect off.
It doesn't reflect all 5 of the minor tentacles, does it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
if they're the only person in.
Okay. So
it'll only do like 20 to 25% of their health, but
that's pretty cool.
All on the prot warrior. It's all on the prot warrior for it.
And that one, so yeah, we think fighting that with the last boss is going to be a good play because you won't have to fight those tentacles at all, and you just have this blob. So as long as the last boss isn't in a space-constrained area, this is definitely something you can do, right? Like, if you're fighting Harlan Suite with this thing, that can be a real pain, right? Like, you don't have very much space against Harlan Suite, and you'll run out of space from Blob of Corruption very quickly. But on most end bosses that have a nice big boss room, you should be fine to fight the blob for a while, right?
Yeah, I think like Yasma's a really good example where the blob's going to be the best mini boss to pull with the last boss. I think maybe the caster spider will still be the best. I don't know, but the blob kind of lines up with how you move Yasma anyway, so it's perfect for that fight.
All right, let's take a look at some advanced strategies that we have for the Awakened Affix. So this one comes from a mage from Shift, has figured out this strategy on mage. We're calling this one Budget Meld. So the way that this works is that you pull the mage goes into the spire first, or pulls the mobs near the spire away. Rather, they go next to the spire. You pull the mobs up next to the spire away, and then the druid can mass root them, and then the mage can invis or die out of their ice block, and all these mobs will be out of combat. And you'll be able to interact with the spire without killing the mobs that are next to it, right? Normally, the spire you can't interact with if there's mobs next to it, but you can use this strategy to pull mobs off of a spire and then actually, go into the spire, right?
Very useful for the double honor guard.
Yeah,
pack.
Yeah, that's Taldazar.
That would be the biggest use case for it. I think is that Taldazar one that's the honor guard pack. I don't realistically see you being able to do it any other way.
Yeah, very cool effect against that. And the reason we're calling this Budget Shadow Meld is, of course, you can just do this with Shadow Meld too if you were playing the correct faction. But unfortunately, all of us messed up on the character select screen, and we're not playing Night Elves. It's a little oopsie that happens to anybody. Oopsie. Yeah.
All my friends are Horde.
Yeah. The next tactic we have, this one is really, really good against the blob. So those minor tentacles that we were talking about? This strategy comes from Squishy, who has figured out that the rogue can go into the obelisk first and run far away, and then the blobs, the tentacles will teleport to the rogue all away from where the mini-boss started. And then the rogue can cast Vanish, and the tentacles will stay there. And now the rest of the party can just go and fight the blob and never have to fight these tentacles because they are just hanging out way away from the spire, rather. And the whole group now can just fight the blood, and you don't have to fight any of those tentacles because they've all been vanished far away. So if this strategy looks very, very good against the blob guy, and if you this is a very powerful thing for rogue. So. Extremely powerful strategy, and I expect there'll be more cool things like this that we find with like rogues in particular on abusing Vanish to do different things on both sides of the obelisks. But this looks like one of the early most powerful strategies I've seen.
It's also just soloable and really safe. Like I think if a rogue is able to do that, they should probably do that. It's really good. Yeah,
one thing to watch out for is that the blob does have true sight, so you need to be moving quickly to stay away from it. Or else when you vanish, you're going to have to die to the blob, because if you're too close to it, you'll just vanish and stay in combat. But, even if that happens, it's still not too big of a loss. It's still faster than fighting those stupid tentacles.
Mage and Hunter should also be able to do that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so the problem with them is that then you have to make sure that the tentacles aren't going to be in your path for when you run back. So Hunter needs to have camo or whatever to actually stealth back past them, or you can place them and then run backwards and then feign. So that you need to make sure that they are not between you and the obelisk, right? If you don't have a stealth, But if you do have, if you spec camo, then it's totally fine. And can mage invis that? Yeah, mage could just invis and then run back through. Definitely works.
It also is important to note that the awakened realm is the same, like it's universal. So if you are ballsy or stupid or smart enough, depending on which you are, you can actually fight multiple of the mini bosses at once if you activate 2 pylons somehow.
Yeah. So
I don't know how you would, but it is a thing.
Well, a rogue can sneak ahead and open and start an obelisk while the rest of your group uses a different one, and then you can meet in the middle and fight your 2 mini bosses together. Something like that could be a play.
Fighting 2 of them together is really, really dangerous, but it could be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could use this as well you could also just chain from one to the other. Like, as one is dying, your rogue can be sneaking ahead and using the next one or something. I don't know if that's going to be the play, but it's an option, fighting 2 mini bosses at once. That might be something, particularly like in an MDI setting, we might see 2 mini bosses at once and then 2 with the last boss, right? Blob and Spider with the last boss, something like that. Might end up being
I'd say it's
MDI
strat. An MDI thing. It's gonna be really hard on live and high keys, but if it's possible, that'd be awesome. That's a big time save.
Very, very, very cool affix though so far. So far, this affix looks like it's gonna be awesome for high key players that want to have cool strats, and also just totally manageable for people doing their weekly keys. And unlike Beguiling, you don't have to think about it every pull, and it doesn't make any pulls impossible. You just have to learn how to do these 4 mini boss encounters, and then you're chilling. So I think that's going to be amazing. Okay, that I think does it for our Awakened guide. Hope that has helped you learn what this affix does. Little tips there. Of course, as we learn more from this, we'll do more episodes where we talk about what strats we've developed from playing it ourselves on live. But for now, that's an early look at it and some of the strategies we've come up with. Let's answer some questions and then head out of here. So our first question comes from Big Nick, who asks, is Trell going to swap to Prot this patch? And is Tettles still going to flap into bananas? The second one I can answer. We don't need Tettles on that one. Yes, that will still be happening.
Tettles will 100% still flap into bananas.
Trell, are you going to be swapping to Protection Warrior this patch, though?
I think I'm going to start on both Brew and Prot Warrior at the same time. Just farm both up and then maintain my alts as a thing to play later in the season. I think Brewmaster is going to be too good in Raid to really just play Warrior alone, but Warrior will probably be okay for Raid by a few months into the tier, and then also be the best tank in Mythic Plus by a little bit. And so I'll just want to have both tanks at that.
Yeah, the first few months are going to be interesting because nobody's going to have a geared Warrior except if they DPS in Raid. None of the World Top 100 guilds are really going to play Prot Warriors, I don't think. So it's going to be hard to Mythic Plus gear them in the first wave of gear. You'll have to catch it as a DPS Warrior or in the second wave of gear. But yeah, I think that Brewmaster or whatever will continue to be fine. So you'll continue to be able to just do keys on those for the first couple of months while you gear that mostly in Raid.
I agree. Yeah. It's also worth noting, I mentioned this in my Wowhead article as well, though. Rusted Druid and Brewmaster will probably still be the strongest combo for a while into the season, not only because of Raid popularity, but with Brewmaster at least, but also because of their synergy. And then I think by the end of the season, Holy Paladin is actually going to be overtaking Druid, possibly. Yeah. And that scales with Prot Warrior a little bit better than Druid, or rather other tanks. So Holy Paladin just heals Prot Warrior the best out of any other tank healer combo, I think.
Right. The synergy between Brewmaster and Rusted Druid is very powerful, right? Like those two specs complement each other. A dot and a hot are really good with each other. But beyond that, we think Holy Pally with Warriors and stuff. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Trell.
Yeah.
If you're gearing up a Rusted Druid, it'll probably be as balanced mostly in Raid for if you're in like World Top 100, but Balanced Druid is good in Raid, right? But then again, Fury Warrior or Arms Warrior can be played to get your Prot Warrior geared, so, we might start seeing these the Holy Paladin Prot Warrior comps fast as well. It just depends on if people are able to gear their warriors and the right characters.
So somebody just asked in chat why Holy Pally is so good with Warrior, though. Not only do they... So Warrior actually takes almost no initial damage, while the Holy Pally is actually able to pop wings and all of their cooldowns offensively if they don't actually need their cooldowns to be able to heal. That is a very big advantage of Holy Pally. They also just heal how Warrior takes damage just a little bit better than how Brewmaster's taking damage. Because Brewmaster needs more consistent, like long form
healing. They need a lot of attention.
Whereas Holy Pally can just like heal the warrior up to full, and then just like continue to swing Crusader strikes at mobs.
Yeah, and when the warrior has no shield block, the Holy Pally can just holy shock them and then spam heals into them effectively. And then when the warrior has shield block up, the Holy Pally can just do damage. And the warrior does not need any help.
Yeah.
Whereas the Brewmaster kind of always needs some healing ticking on them, which Glimmer of Light can do. Like, it's not like Holy Paladins cannot heal. They can heal Brewmasters, but Resto Druid's Hots are just a perfect answer for Brewmasters that like always need some healing and never need super heavy healing. Like at a spike by surprise, which is what Holy Paladin's good at.
It just allows Paladin to shine, and they don't have to like try very hard to heal their tank, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Our next question comes from Aragion or Aragion, something in Discord, who asks, how is spamming Mythic plus 6s the first week good without Titanforging and loot capped at 445? I have one ring at 440 that I could replace if I got a 445 with the right stats. In past seasons, it made sense, but I don't see it now. Any corrupted 445 piece would be replaced the following week anyways. So I think the big thing that you're going to want to spam when loot is capped at 445 for Mythic Plus is socketed like Mechagon rings are going to continue to be BIS for forever. Or not, BIS, but it's something that you'll wear for all of progression. A two set of Mechagon rings that are socketed is better than any raid items in your ring slots. Outside of that, if there are some overpowered corruptions, like if Infinite Stars end up being the best corruption by a lot, then just farming Mythic Plus to get corrupted Infinite Stars pieces is going to be valuable as well, and will be worth having some item levels on, or dropping some item levels for. But, the real answer is that no, you don't need to spam plus 6s quite as hard as you used to. It's something, though, that Mechagon, in particular, is going to be popular for those Mechagon rings. All right, our next question comes from Lore Drive, who says, hi, Trell. Are you saying Brew or switching to a warrior?
Man, what about the next question after that?
Our next question comes from the Shift Mage, who says, when is Trell swapping to Prot Warrior?
I'm going to play both Warrior and Monk, damn it. I'll probably play a little bit more Prot Warrior in Mythic Plus. We'll see.
All right, Trell, my question for you is, are you looking forward to people asking you why you're not playing Brewmaster when we play Prot Warrior?
No.
What about YouTube comment section?
Yeah. Yeah, you're looking forward to the YouTube comment section.
Oh, man. Honestly, like, I would just play Brewmaster, but I like to be competitive, and I like to do MDI when I can, and so multi-classing is very important for that. And if something's just a little bit better to be, like, super, super competitive, then you should play what's best.
Why? Okay, so why do you think that Brewmaster won't be able to do cutting-edge keys next patch if you are playing it? Because you know how to make routes, and you know how to make Brewmaster work. So what advantage do you actually think Prot Warrior would give you? Of course, it's better at like at a different suite of things, but do you actually think that you would be better off playing something that is more meta like a Prot Warrior? Because I feel like honestly, you can make Brewmaster Monk work if you wanted to put in the amount of time.
Prot Warrior just does like twice as much damage, though.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like it.
Well, it's a lot of things, right? It's one, they have Spell Reflect that just like destroys some of the timer on the dungeon and makes it a minute faster with a Prot Warrior in some cases. It also allows you to do more dungeons on Tyrannical Week. Like Waycrest is closed for Brewmaster on 21 Plus this season, but it's open for Warrior because of Spell Reflect. Warrior and Holy Paladin synergy is going to be really important, I think, by the end of the season. You can't really play Brewmaster with Holy Pally. Like if my healer Jam wants to play Paladin, which he does, then I probably shouldn't play Brewmaster. So we kind of keep our Druid, Brewmaster, and Paladin Warrior combos together. And also mitigation wise, Brewmaster's just getting a huge cut because of the fix to get to the Ox. Warrior's just going to straight up take less damage and require less healing all season, I think. And aside from that, I think it just handles a lot of these mini bosses better, except for the Tank Buster, which you could play around locally, but honestly, it's not a huge setback considering how little part of the dungeon it is.
What if you could play the Tank Buster with an end boss with a Brewmaster Monk?
I don't think so. That
in a high key,
healing.
it's still so much damage, right? The 100% damage taken debuff afterwards, and you're tanking like an Awakened mini boss and the end boss.
It's not 100% increased damage taken. I think it's 100% increased damage taken from him, right?
Oh, is it? Okay. That's a little bit less bad.
It's just for the tank, yeah. And also like the circle that the Tank Buster does, I don't know if you really want to do that in high keys with the last boss. You have to move pretty far out of the Dark Fury cast.
That's true, yeah.
Oh, the Dark Fury cast is pretty trash. Never mind. I redact that statement.
It's all damage. It's all damage, Squishy says.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Fuck that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, Brewmaster was like one of the biggest things that made Brewmaster good in this season was how well it handled Beguiling, which is going away. So there's like all kinds of little things like this that contribute to making Prot Warrior the best tank again. And honestly, Prot Warrior was just as good as Brewmaster this season as well, and better in some dungeons like the Tyrannical Waycrest. But they just struggle with dealing with tides and void emissaries, and that's it.
Yeah. I don't know. We could be wrong. There things other than Prot Warrior, Holy Pally could be good. I think that Resto Druid, Mistweaver, and and Holy Pally will all be great healers and can all work with Prot Warriors in different ways. So I wouldn't worry too much about which healer. I think all three of those are likely to show up on the front page of Radar.io, but I think you'll mostly see Warriors up there just because I think they'll be able to do keys a level or two higher from how much extra damage they bring.
Honestly, fuck it. Keep hyping up the Holy Pally. I want to get invited to keys next season.
Yeah, balance druids are going up in value. Druids. Yeah.
Stock rising emoji.
Yeah. All right. I think that's going to be all for our show this week. Next week, we're going to be back with a preview of the raid of Nyalotha. And then the week after that, we'll be doing a preview of Mythic Nyalotha. And that's going to be all for us. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. We'll see you next week. Bye.